Not an actor.
Thank you. We'll call the finance. Sorry to cut you here. We'll call the finance meeting to order at 5:23.
Yep.
Pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Clerk Pelowitz. Here. Supervisor Hewitt. Here. Trustee Robinson.
Here.
Trustee Page is here. Trustee McGovern. Here. Trustee Geis. Admin Light. And Commissioner Young.
Anyone online?
I need public. No, I do.
All right, any public comment?
No public.
Good, thank you. So my apologies that we're meeting on the coldest day of the year. I know it was scheduled for last Friday. I thought it was most important that the supervisor, Administrator Light and I spend some time to look at the numbers. So we had a chance to do that on Friday. So that's why this got delayed from what we thought was going to be last Friday. I thought we had a good discussion and we can go through what that looks like. Relative to number 5, review of 2024 township financial expenditures. We all have the material from our last meeting that was prepared by Lauterbach and Almond. I just want to call out a number of budget lines which will be germane for our discussion when we talk about the amended budget that we need to file for the current year, plus also some thoughts around the budget for the next fiscal year. Objective of this meeting is to get agreement on those 2 documents so that we can set the date of March the 12th for the final review with the public. We do have opportunities to make changes between now and then, so I want to get that process started. One I want to call out first is 10-1301 building liability auto insurance. We are at 191% spend because of the additional expense for some of our new vehicles, plus the new property on 2121 Ogden Avenue. The other one is 1305, which is water sewer utility. We are over our budget by a percentage that is not acceptable. It's 150% spend. We need to increase that. Capital improvements, we have not spent, we've only spent 15% of $125,000 budget, but we do have a $60,000 set, probably close to 65-70,000 set aside that we're going to spend between now and the end of the fiscal, hopefully, for the windows. Yeah. And then if we make any other capital improvements, we may need some more money there. So I'm going to suggest some increases there. Administration, which is 10-1600. We are at 132% of budget because we have used basically contract township administrators for the entire year. We need to raise that number, and we've raised it to that will support continuing through the end of the fiscal year, plus some of the other charges that we've approved as a board, particularly around some of the digitization services. So we'll talk about what that number looks like. I do want to highlight that our staff salary fund is currently 56% spent because we have not hired some of the roles, particularly the township administrator. And this is through 3 quarters of the year. The other ones I want to mention, website expenses, we just need to budget something for that line. As of the end of December, we had spent 61% of our budgeted township expenses. I'll go on and talk about what we need to make an amended appropriations document. The other thing I want to highlight, and this is more of a discussion as we talk about 2025, 2026, is our spend in our general assistance. We've spent 42% of our entire budget for those budget lines as of 3 quarters of the way through the year. So some things I'll call out in particular that we have not spent any on sewer and water assistance. We had budgeted some money, $40,000 in budget line 20-2616 to buy food, which we've not had to do this year. This is this year, but I think as we were help plan for the next year, do we still need those types of funds set aside for that?
Why haven't we received checks for food?
Sorry, say again?
I received expenses for food.
Supervisor Hewitt?
It's the line item that we're talking about. So there's every single month we buy, Albertsons, that's the voucher checks. And so that's in the GA spend. It's, I think what you're referring to, trustee Robinson, is line,
2616.
yeah, 2616. So it's a different line item. So that food would be 2021-01 is where we routinely spend money.
And then why are we budgeting for the windows if those are coming out of a grant?
Well, we have to
We have to spend.
spend them, and then the grant comes on the income
Yeah.
side.
It's a
Right, but
payback.
it's still an extra 65,000 we would still have at our disposal.
And,
That's how they work though, that's how they're.
Yeah,
Oh,
they don't give us money. We have to spend the money and then follow, pay for it.
supervisor,
It's a reimbursement.
right,
Like this.
and I think, looking on the timing, that reimbursement will probably be into the next fiscal year, even though the spend will probably be this current fiscal year.
oh, got it, thank you.
So I just want to highlight, as we look at the expenditures, that's where we are. I've asked, I want to mention something. So we'll talk more about this when we talk about Renaissance maintenance and some of their services. But John Light has been having weekly meetings with Renaissance to talk about work items for them to do within the facility. And then also other things that we might want to think about, the township might want to think about from a capital investment and facility investment. So I know you've captured some of those thoughts in a memo that you put together. Would you like to spend some time watching? And one of the big things is security. I must highlight that physical security for this property. So why don't I let you spend some time on that?
So some of the things that, we've been thinking about, and brainstorming about their ideas we do. With regard to facilities. And these are more tactical maybe for the upcoming year. And then there are a couple of big picture items that are really go beyond just a 1 year item. That are big picture that you can briefly mention. I baked them all into this memo, you can read it in the packet. We probably, you guys do your eyes, but in a tactical sense, and that tactical short-term thinking or short range thinking is one, budget for some security audits. There are two types of security. One now is physical security, the other one is IT security. Physical security, we have a lot of people coming and going in the building. You have volunteers, you have employees, they all need different levels of access. Look at the security system, exterior lighting, just for safety, signage in the parking lots. Commissioner Young is already looking at putting some additional signage in that you don't go back in those areas. But there may need to be other signage, like, in the building, there needs to be signage, like, visitors cannot go beyond this point. There are some areas that are secured. Even in the parking lot, like this parking lot you don't leave cars here. It could be towed after a certain hour. And key fob systems, panic buttons, and gates to the parking lots. And the gates will be something we want to confer with Commissioner Young, but long-term, you may want to think and budget for and have those discussions. IT security, two components of it. Software and someone monitoring it and ongoing training, even more so than we have now. A lot of the future threats and lines of coverage and insurance, which are exploding, are cycles. For a lot of liabilities. Another capital improvement item, different than IT or physical security is, what to do about this room and possibly relocate it. That means furniture, space. This room is pretty small. I mean, you pack a lot of people in here. Probably is barely ADA compliant, barely. But it would be hard for anybody who is severely physically limited to not only sit on your side of the table, but over here as well. So that's something where you would spend not only for furniture, but for AV. Notice that it's just on a little thing and Diane has to cart that screen around. Ideally, you would have something that was permanent, someone could plug into. Ideally, you would have a strong enough wireless system where you guys are using tablets and not killing trees. So those are some things that I think that might be worth thinking about. The specifics of it, if you budget for it, somebody downstream, like the next board can decide if they want to do it. But if it's not in the budget, it's not enough. I reference tablets. I think that's the way of the future for boards. Not only to receive your packet information electronically, so we don't need to reprint, you just have it at your desk. Where the savings is Cynthia makes copies of all this. This takes most of her afternoon. So you're looking at 4 hours of labor every meeting, plus the cost of the paper and copier. So at the end of the day, tablets are cost effective.
Annotate. Where you have, it's one of the annotations.
Yep. The other thing is you can use the tablets to respond to your constituencies. Emails, you do it all on one machine. There's no like, oh, I do, I have my township account that I log into remotely, but it's on your physical machine at home. Here's your tablet, do everything on this. That way you have a clean break. If you're ever FOIA, you just give me your tablet. Everything's on my tablet. So that's a capital expense. You'd have to budget for it. That could be for the board that follows it. Another idea that I don't know that it's practical, but I'm trying to set up the policies to do this. You may have an accounting firm that actually tracks some of your Waterback is handling, and I hate to use them. It's just a company. I don't want to just specifically give them the assumption that they're going to do it, but tracking time and attendance and actually recording the paid time off so that it's done by somebody. It's completely automatic. They're entering in, you get 8 hours vacation, they're subtracting it from the bank. Right now, we have the system where it's kind of piecemeal, and part of that is because you're having turnover. I'm newer, some of the staff is newer. If you automate that and have someone that's doing your payroll do that, it's an accurate accounting at all times.
But you don't have to have a person do it, there's software that does that.
And that's why some of whoever is doing your payroll, if it's like it is now, Waterback is doing it. There's companies, either they or somebody else can add that. That's an add-on service that you can add. But my recommendation would be to budget for that and have that, because with a new board coming in, you're taking away the possibility that one of those other very important items, but it's a good thing that is just being done for them.
Yeah, we could use like a purely HR, and then the township administrator can look at it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Then no one has to administer it, because you literally put your vacation request in there. It goes right to the person who makes the decision. It tracks how many days you have left, what you approve. It's so nice.
You can do all those software packages. That's basically what I'm recommending, is that you gotta have some software. I know that many different options exist. I would just put some money in the budget for an option, let people downstream take the specific one that works for them. But you really, again, you're reducing your labor expense, you're reducing your transference costs of knowledge, because now it's done all up here. And we're simplifying the policies to set it up to make it easy for software. So those are some tactical items. Do you want me to go over some of the strategic things too? Just big picture.
What do you think? You folks, you get a chance to read this? You want to? Okay, is there any,
This is the place for discussion, so
Okay.
why not?
okay, you want to take,
I'll just throw out some of the other one that's longer term, that's related to something else we may be discussing, is really building out a campus facilities plan. What is your campus gonna look like? What form should it take? And, that's something that's gonna evolve, but you really need a multi-view plan. Not only for property acquisition, but for the demolition of buildings. And it has to be coordinated between, obviously the township board, township supervisor, highway commissioner, and the assessor. And I think there needs to be staff input into the facilities plan. They're the ones closest to the work and the services you're performing, whether it be general assistance, whether it be, food pantry, people waiting in the food pantry line. And all of those are available, but that's something where you need a campus plan. And it's planned out so that if you have a plan, you can budget for it. You can hit a target that's stationary, but if the target's always moving and the goal's always moving, you're never really gonna get to your destination. But that's something where a facilitator and someone who has some knowledge on how to build it out can tell you, and also knowledge of just what the buildings do. So worth adding on to this thing, or are you better off just forget? But that's also, starting the plan doesn't mean that this board will be the ones that execute it. It will be something that, it's gonna be a commitment by several boards to kind of think that way, and it's really the transition from tactical thinking from year to year, get the budget done, to what are we gonna look like long term? For you guys, what's difficult about that is, you know, Mr. Young has run successfully many times. He has, you know, been in office, so he's got the continuity where he can build knowledge and execute long-term plans. For you guys, because really, in effect, you're always changing every 4 years, somebody's changing. You have this, you go up and down a little bit in terms of your knowledge. That's why it's good to have somebody facilitate it, that's a professional facilitating it and bringing it back to you and keeping you up to speed on it. And there is value to that continuity, and, you know, it's harder to get with a board than it is an individual. But I really think a campus, facilities plan where you have the involvement of all the elected officers that aren't on the board, like highway commissioner and assessor, will be critical to really leveraging the footprint you have. I'm sorry, clerk, too. Sorry, that's why I like to sit in the back, because I see, and I can always say clerk. But, you know, that's gonna be really important. I think it's worth, you know, frankly, I think it's worth to spend at least $25,000, maybe 50. And I know I might be getting over my skis, but when you think of the dollar value of all the buildings you have here, you know, that's a small spend to figure out what you're doing. And again, you're really mapping out options for people to act on in the future and giving them just the foundation to build off of. It's not something where you're gonna ask people for more money yet. You get a lot of figuring to do. And really, it was something that if you budgeted for in this cycle, you're really just budgeting or spending for the plan. The execution of the plan is people downstream. So I would break it up into those two parts.
Yeah, I know, I'll echo. So we inherited effectively a plan. This board came in because I think they had made a decision around to have an option for that property, 21 and we executed when that option came up. From a space point of view, you know, we swapped it from an expense to a revenue side, but longer term, what does it mean with that space? And I think just the last check I had, earliest we can get access to additional space is 2027, early 2027, so 2 years, and that's the back part of the building, and that could factor into the plan, plus other decisions around. So, sorry, the other thing is, and we've talked about this, and there is a proposal on here, and we can talk a little bit about it later, but I feel that we brought new programs in. Staff really hasn't had an opportunity to say, this is how I'm being impacted. These are the, you know, I've done this with, this is the adjacency, this is who I work with, this is what I need access to, this is where I have to go every day. How can it make it a better experience for our employees? And I mean, you want to speak to that too?
I think that's a huge part of it. And how you roll those out, it's, you know, it's critical. And even deciding on the policymaking side, what lines of business you want to be in, like where your expertise is on staff, is going to be critical. And that's where I would say what the township is, I think, demonstrated one thing that you've been very good at, and supervisor and you as a board all deserve credit for this, is you've been really good at starting out things. You know, like when you have a startup business, start it up, get some success. Then you reach a point of critical mass where you go, okay, are we gonna go bigger, or are we gonna hire a board of directors? We're gonna take this company public, things like that. I think that you're getting to the size with some of your programs now. This is where Barry's comments about the staff come in. There more of a staff, there needs to be either more of a staff involvement in asking them what they need, or you need to look at, do we continue to be the primary point, or have we grown it to the point where it's successful and we hand it off to somebody else to run for us? That can be in the form of an intergovernmental agreement, you know?
Give an example of.
Sure,
where you would do
like
that.
here's an example. We run the medical lending closet. So you notice the wheelchairs and stuff out here. We run that here. Now, if you are someone who is maybe struggling, you may have a need for that, or you have a loved one that has a need for that, you can come up the stairs in this building. You can walk all the way up, come to a secure reception area. Our receptionist has to go somewhere in the building, or maybe out to the barn to go get that piece of equipment, find it, locate it, and get it to you. Now, what I've been told, been informed of, is the Lisle Park District, which has a nice one-floor building where it's easy in, easy out, runs the same exact program.
What?
So, what you may do is instead of absorbing all the costs associated with this program, which are soft costs like your staff time spent in it and storing it, and then thinking about how do we get space to hold all this stuff, maybe the conversation shifts so that you don't make these big capital investments in this building. Maybe the policy conversation is Lisle Park District. We would like to partner with you so we don't duplicate your service, but we'll enter into an intergovernmental agreement. You know, maybe there's something we give in exchange for that, whatever that is, that is.
Is
Something,
theirs free?
I'm not sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Why did we, okay, so
But-
take me back.
But my point
Yeah,
is,
sorry,
you've been very good at starting it up.
Yeah.
Maybe before you look at constructing new buildings, you should have some of these policy conversations. Because you don't build something to just duplicate, you go,
Yeah.
you do that. But
Thank you. I think the supervisor would like to make a comment.
So we did have that conversation with the Lisle Park District. We weren't able to get to a partnership. We very much attempted to do that. It's been very helpful for the community because we have different pieces of equipment. And so we'll generally refer, if we don't have enough wheelchairs, then we'll refer people to them. And we're constantly referring to them because we just don't have, neither entity has enough space for all the wheelchairs that we all need.
Oh, they don't have space for it?
I'm just saying that they were out of space for some of the pieces some time ago, and we've been trading back and forth, like I said, for if we don't have enough wheelchairs, I'm just saying that
Well, we have no space.
attempted.
So my question, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I feel badly. I was not aware that the park district had a money closet. So I'm thinking to myself, why did we do this? Why did we start this? If we had that resource, we could have just been asked, we could have done a drive. We could have done a drop where people brought everything here and we took it over. I mean, I just don't understand why we've been maintaining that and having employees hauling stuff back and forth or retrieving stuff back and forth. It's talk about duplication of effort. It's not just duplication of service. It's just a lot of manpower unnecessarily used. So thank you for bringing that forward.
But I think that,
Go ahead.
but I think Supervisor Hewitt made a great point if you approach them. Sometimes you do it every couple of years. And I think that one of the secrets to any unit of government now is it's become harder and harder for you guys to justify increasing, you know, what you tax. And you have to prove your worth. So you do just gotta look at these things. And it may be a revenue sharing arrangement, it may be something. If neither one of us have space, maybe there's a way you share the expense and eliminate some of the costs. Because some of the costs administrative, you know, otherwise duplication, and having a single point that provides the service to your community increases accountability. I'm just a believer on that.
Thank you. So any other things around strategic that you would like to highlight in the question? You have a question? Thank you.
We have a budget and quotes on flooring and painting, and we're talking about moving forward and maybe knocking down walls. Are we moving forward with flooring?
Sorry, I was just gonna close out on John Lights. and
Yeah,
then I'll
well,
jump to the-
relevant to growth.
Okay.
We are jumping on things and we're talking about growth, which could be in the near future. 2 years is not that far away. In my opinion, well, in my house, I wouldn't tear up the flooring if I knew I was gonna be knocking down walls in 2 years.
I understand. Yeah, that reference of 2 years is for the 21-21 Ogden, not
Yeah.
for this place, not for this space. We,
But that does change.
yeah, thank you. I mean, we've talked about it, right? Like, we figured that any adjustments in this facility, probably at least a year out minimum, because we were talking about the planning right now. So, part of this, so. Well, the other board may have a different decision, may make a different decision, but at this point, it's really. We're talking about 3 different things, I think. One is, okay, what's the long-term opportunities around 2021? Thank you.
And what are we budgeting for improvements?
Right,
Mhm.
right, and what we budget for improvements in this facility. And then what is a planning exercise that can take place that's gonna help position what could be done here and what could be done there. Incorporating the input from the employees, because I think that's the piece that's been missing, so.
I have to interrupt. Did we have 2 people who have joined?
Yes, can we get their names, please?
Beth Papini and, Kelly Kuzmits, is that the case?
I
Did you see a phone?
I see a phone number and a phone icon, and then I see somebody's name.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that's Kelly. Kuzmits, is that the case, Kelly?
Can you come off mute, please, and identify yourself?
Yeah, that's Kelly Kuzmits, and then it's also Beth Papini. We're with Wintrust Financial, Wheaton Bank.
Thank you. Could you spell your last name, Kelly, please?
Kelly's last name is Kuzmitz.
Thank you.
And I thank you for joining. We are still in finance committee discussion. We haven't got to the full board meeting when we'll be talking about your proposal. So you're welcome to participate. It's probably going to be at least another 25, 30 minutes
Yeah.
before we get to that
That's
topic.
fine. We'll just hang tight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Okay, I'm
it.
sorry for the interruption.
No, that was important. As I said, John's been having weekly meetings with Renaissance, right? And they said, okay, okay, tiles we fix, electrical things we put in, light bulbs we've replaced. What else can we do to help you here? So they become a trusted partner. They helped us through the bidding process for the windows, and they're going to be the GC and the project manager for that. So you said, okay, what else can you do to help us here, right? Like, what do you see as opportunities to make improvements in this space? Both, I mean, it's looking dated, right? Both for our employees and for people that walk in. So the two things, and this actually predated John joining us. Jim had got a proposal to do wall coverings back in July. So the quotes that we have really are from 6 months ago to redo the wall coverings. And then the other thing we talked about is, okay, if we're going to do that, looking around, what else could we do to improve the so that's where the flooring comes in as well.
The flooring's also because they're a full set of carpet over there. So to really do the carpet cleaning, you're cleaning a carpet that is. So we're kind of stuck in between these two competing interests, like keep the building reasonably, up to date as the public comes in. It doesn't have to be a palace, but it should be clean. It should be nice, presentable. But should we really, is cleaning the carpets going to damage it worse? Like out in the hallway, you see where the wear and tear is affected. So we've asked ourselves those questions, and honestly, the simplest time to do the floor is you do the windows, then you paint the wall, paint the floors, what Renaissance consulted us with. I understand the dilemma, like if we're gonna move walls, why are we spending this money now? It could be a year or longer before you move walls, because I think in a normal transition with boards, the next board's gonna take at least 3 months to figure out.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because I was thinking, why not leave that decision
you can
to,
do that too.
uh,
You can
Putting
do
out
that
there's
too.
an option.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the investment at this
yeah.
time, but
under our
and it is budgeted, right? So
budget. Okay,
that's thank you. That ties together with everything. Yeah, so that's the flooring. Wall covering, I said that to me seems like a lot more achievable. I mean, they're coming in and gluing pieces back on the wall, gluing the wallpaper back on. So is that an effective, is that how we want to present the township? So that's really 7 and 8 that we talked about. We'll make motions in the full board meeting, but that's any other discussion on that now. I appreciate your perspective and your concern.
want to ask questions?
Yeah, please, thank you.
Good question.
Now, I think I positioned this probably back at the December meeting that, and I've got to tell you, one thing that really drove me to think we should have some outside folks come in is when we started to hear about some of the issues our employees were having, particularly around the recycling program and the medical lending closet, and having to haul stuff up to and we said, okay, can we give them a voice? And is there a way we can give them a voice to say, here's what's important that I think is important for me to deliver services that I feel are within my charter to deliver to the community. So that's why I opened that discussion. I reached out first, actually, I'll mention, I reached out to Studio CG. You may remember them from the old.
3 years ago, 2 years
The
ago.
architect?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They, haven't been able to engage with them. I
Okay.
called, I phoned, I emailed. So I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Then, I reached out and said, okay, who's local, right? And I've been in commercial real estate. I know, Clerk Pollitz has been in commercial real estate as well as residential real estate and has worked with architecture firms. So he said, let's just see who's local, right? And so we talked to this firm and I called a couple, 3 firms. One got back to me right away and we brought them in and spent a few minutes with them. And I said, okay, here's sort of what we're thinking. Is this something that your firm can do? How would you engage? And so they laid out a process to do that. If we feel we need to talk to more folks, I'm fine doing that and bringing more options, or we can just say, look, let's leave that for the next group. I mean, I don't know where your guys' thoughts is on this, but we have 5 more months or 4 more months of making decisions. Is it something that we want to tackle or we want to wait for the next folks? That's really where we're at.
I'm all for updating, but just paint and flooring, and we're not even talking expensive flooring. I mean, when they get the painting quote, I'm like, I just got to paint my house and I paid more than that, I think just brightening up with paint, brightening up with new flooring, getting rid of this disgusting carpet, and is repulsive as this one is, the one in the hallway down there is even worse.
There's some things that we could do to make the office ergonomics better too. We could have the standing desks, we could, improve the lighting. Just so that when people are working, we all know that when you're on a computer all day, having the flexibility to sit and stand and having lighting this is the worst lighting to be on a computer all day.
And is everybody in the right space? Like, for instance, it was brought up that the office that the supervisor currently occupies, it has an exterior door. It's a larger room. I mean, it could actually be used maybe as a conference room for people for general assistance. They won't even have to come into the lobby. They have a separate door, very private, very controlled. There's all kinds of things we could think about to better utilize the spaces that we have.
And I think you're gonna have, you or the next board will have ongoing discussions about programs you offer and how your space has to operate in harmony with the programs.
I think
They're
that
really joint.
some legwork is important because we've already been here for almost 4 years. So to wait for another board to amp up. I don't know, I think we should at least get the wheel in motion.
And with Supervisor
And-
Mullen did.
And I don't think we need to if we're gonna do it. I've never walked behind this building, but is there a way to connect the two?
Physically,
Not really. You have to leave here. I'm back there all the time because of the garden. Right behind here, there's a berm, right? Like directly behind this end of the building, there's a large berm. And then a fence that separates us from the stone center. And then that starts to taper down as you go to the east. And then directly behind what we call it the pipe garden back there, where you grow your pipes. That's what we call it. You can access, if that's flat, you can walk straight across then to the assessor's office, to that building to 2121 Ogden.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't do a whole lot in here because, if you are gonna reevaluate how to do things, I wouldn't, floor and paint is not a bad idea, but I would start looking at how do we make the work, day, better for the staff,
And that goes along with what Trustee Robinson said, to have the architects to sit with the staff, not us, we're not here, right? We're not.
Well, I don't
using
think you need an
office.
architect to get an ergonomic desk.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about
How
the
to use
usage of the
space,
spaces,
yeah.
right, and then that part is, yeah.
But I do like,
And I think the architect can also fold in like comments from Commissioner Young, because I mean, some of the uses are just not. I'm overusing the term harmony, but we have folks coming into the food pantry, cutting across an incline that's going uphill. And we got really, I don't know how many pounds your trucks weigh? Like 30,000, I mean, 30,
There's some, 60.
60,000 pounds.
Either.
And those things are coming down the incline and yeah, they're going 5 miles an hour, but it still takes 50. Stop. Yeah, so, we just need to take an analysis of that and like. You got a lot of different users. You're running a highway yard, running a food pantry, you're running general assistance, medical lending closet. All in a very small campus, plus the assessor's office, which has a whole host of different things. Someone's kind of gotta tell us like, if you continue with all these programs, like. What works? And that's beyond my skill set.
Yeah, mine too.
But could the new board do away with the food pantry?
Possibly.
I mean, they could go in a whole new direction. I mean, obviously with the federal laws, regulations changing. Food pantries. Who knows? Gonna upset that.
All right, well, we'll get, thank you for the discussion. Why don't we move on to number 10? Because I think it's important that we get through, definitely that we get these documents in review. I think as they are presented, they highlight. So I'm talking about ordinance number 2025-001. This is an amended budget ordinance for Lisle Township in the 2024-2025 budget year. What's being proposed is for the amendment is to increase budget line 10-1301 by $32,000 to $67,000. What is being proposed is to increase water sewer, which is budget line 10-1305 by $1,550 to a budget of $4,050. What is being suggested is proposed amended is to change capital improvements budget line 10-1308 by $35,000 to $160,000. What is being proposed or amended for the amendment is to increase budget line 1600 for administration by $160,000 to $300,000. And what is being proposed is amended is to increase budget line 10-2800 website expenses to a budget of $500, which is an increase of $500. The net increase is $229,050 for a grand total of an amended budget amount of $3,415,526. And then the total appropriations for town and GA on the bottom of the I think it's the 6th page, is that the total budget for amended budget for 24-25 is 3,726,126 for a difference of 229,050. Any questions? This is consistent with the earlier discussion around the township financial expenditures for the current fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions relative to those proposed amendments? Okay, thank you. We can vote on them in the next, in the full board meeting. The other document we want to look at is document budget ordinance 2025-002. There's a number of adjustments so this has been updated with the amended 24-25 based on your approval of ordinance 2025-001. You can see that our the township's estimated fund balance will be slightly larger, 121,400. A number of adjustments, both positive and negative on the income side for a net differential of $236,000 less in terms of grants and interest and aggregate fund payments. So that's on the income side. On the expense side, what's being proposed is to increase budget line 10-1305 by $450 to $4,500. What is being proposed for the to reduce the food pantry facilities equipment by $92,700. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. That's budget line 10-1309. Feeling that we made a significant investment in the food pantry this year, and that we could a budget of $50,000 for expenses and facilities and equipment will be sufficient in the new year. What's being proposed is in budget line 10-1600.
Just, 1309 doesn't have a dollar amount, right? Did you say 92,000?
A reduction of 90. Yeah, it should. I'm sorry. Sorry. What might be confusing is there's yeah. what might be confusing is there was, yeah. There was a discussion about should there be a separate fund called Capital Improvement Fund, which has no value in it. You okay? No, I appreciate your help. Yeah, I think what's confusing is there was a discussion on potentially having a new budget line for capital improvement funding. Pulled out separately. I think we're waiting. We have not yet coordinated or collaborated with our lot of economics to see if they would recommend that as an exercise that we should have a separate budget line for that. I'll take guidance from them.
What's so a capital improvement fund or capital improvement funding, did I miss that? What's the difference?
Supervisor, do you want, I knew you brought this concept. Do you want to talk about how you envision using that budget line, capital improvement fund?
It's normally done in a way to basically pre-save for capital improvements, like say you were looking to replace one of the vehicles. So this way it also isn't a part of the number of we're not allowed to save anything more than 2.5 times the budget amount, so it's not a part of that number. So it's a different fund that then allows one to save for building improvements for larger term pieces that are gonna go multi-year and multi-terms. And it plans then, so say you needed to buy a new vehicle, it would be in that fund.
Didn't we always have that? Didn't we always have a capital improvement fund? You just have to
Justify what you.
justify
It
it.
serves a simple.
It does something, you can't have, like, you could have capital improvements, but there's not been a fund that I know of in our township where it was actually a fund.
I don't think it has to be, a
I
fund.
don't
It just
think
has to
it
be
either.
identified.
Well, I've been told that if it is actually a fund and it's not just identified, it needs to then be a line item and it would then be exempt of the 2.5 times savings of your budget, so.
So are
Maybe
you
when I go through
suggesting,
on budget, for example, I told you about the fuel station, I saved over $1 million for
Correct.
that, it turned out much less. But I had that as a capital line item, I didn't have a separate fund, I just had it. And that way that gets excluded, because I can support this amount of money was in my capital fund to be built for that fuel station. So-
Didn't we take out of capital to pay for
Yes.
21
That's exactly
Right,
it.
yeah.
You could change the purpose of
Right.
that fund. Are you suggesting that it comes off the budget altogether and is just a fund separate?
No, it's in the budget because it would be a part of the budget,
What you
Okay.
kick
but
in.
you would have a separate account. So it's not just right now, how you got the 21 IDIN was that you took it out of township funds. Out of the main funds. It would be a separate account specifically for this. Again, it's something that normally happens. I think Township Administrator Light had a comment that that's something that he's experienced in the past.
Even that, I just was checking the status where my kids were.
Does it just make it easier to use, to allocate?
To have a
No.
specific budget line for capital
It's-
improvement fund.
It just sounds like 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's
trying to
either put
understand.
here, or here
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
budget. So what,
Right.
whatever you decide.
And just to clarify, we actually did transfer, we did actually had a budget amendment to the capital improvements fund 10-1308 to fund the
To
purchase of
put money
20.
in.
So we made the money into that specific fund.
But
Okay.
any board can do it too.
Right. Yes, okay, so the food pantry, I think we reduced that amount. Contractual services, I recommend that we, in the next fiscal year, drop it back to what was current budget, which is 140,000. This will give a few months of overlap for contract service, and then, then an employee will be in place. So that's, brings that number down. Auditing, there's a reduction of, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around it, but they're highlighted, 10-1626, reducing that by 10,000 because we had, I think last year we had 2 years of expenses for audit, so it'll be less in the current, or in the next fiscal year. And then transportation pace, supervisor recommendation was to increase that by 10,000, that's budget line 10-3106. because of anticipated increases potentially in in their service costs and also the rideshare agreement. So the difference between what is the amended budget for the current year and what is being proposed for the next fiscal year is actually $230,000, 550 less than the amended budget. And it's pretty well $1,000 less than the budget that we started with it last year. So that's what we're being proposed here.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Certainly.
And don't have to. When I sat with Joe a number of weeks ago and spoke with him about everything he was going through with the bus and transportation and everything, he brought up something that I think most of us would think is simple, but I think to him it's a big deal. He'd like to get the bus washed. Like, he would like to have an opportunity to take the bus somewhere to get it clean, and he struggles to get money from petty cash to go over to the car wash. Is there a budget item, like,
We talked to him a little bit more just this last week about
Okay.
washing the bus. And there is what we found out is there is a floor drain out there. He can wash the bus in there and we just need to buy an extension thingy so you can reach the top.
okay,
There is a hose too. I didn't know all this part the last time I talked to you. We were thinking, yes, drive it out somewhere, have it washed. just run it
Right.
through a washer. I think he might be able to do it there, but he's gonna try and let us know.
okay.
You
Great
can
question.
certainly come down to our shop.
I was just.
Do you have facilities there to wash?
You do.
Okay,
That's- their vehicles
all right,
are
thank you,
immaculate.
I appreciate
But
that.
that's what I was thinking, their
You know,
vehicles are immaculate,
he's
why are we
proud.
not using? But he may not have known,
Okay,
and you may
clearly,
not have known, but somebody knows, because somebody had to know why these vehicles are clean. His trucks are
Well,
immaculate.
Joe has spoken of an account. It must have been years ago that they must have taken the township vehicles to a car wash.
They did.
Okay.
They did.
So, thank you. I will highlight one thing. So after we had a chance to, John and I to spend time with the supervisor and come up with these numbers, we actually talked to a number of the employees and they've never seen the budget. So
Why
I don't know. So we said, what, I said, is there anything in, election, is there anything in transportation that we should be budgeting for in the next year, right? We haven't talked, Jordan came in for a little bit too, right?
Jordan came in.
And from the Michelle around general assistance. So we would suggest that we spend some time with the employees as well and make sure there's
Agreed.
other things in here that are important to them
Agreed.
that are either called out explicitly or that they know they have a budget to do a certain thing. So that's an exercise that I think we should.
But you just be careful too, like you don't want to deep
Right.
dive them into the budget and go, well, you have this money, and you have this
Yeah.
money.
Right.
You still wanna, that's opening up a Pandora's
Yeah,
box,
we,
but. Yeah, but I wanna go back to this. It's so maddening to me that because we have such a lack of communication, a lack of collaboration, that we would not know that there was this service right down the street where they could wash their vehicle. Like, we have to do better. There's either, like, you have to talk to Ed and talk to John, the three of you sit down and say, hey, what resources do you have? What resources do you have? Let's work together.
Yeah.
Well, he comes down and gets gas every so. I can't believe he would go down and get gas as often as he has without seeing guys out there washing.
But you might have known it was an option. But that's
Well-
because we're not communicating, Yeah.
That could.
you know?
Cause the water
So
pit
let's
that
just
he
do
has to
better.
get into is right, it's the one we use for the garden, right? It's right outside of the exit door, right?
Right.
And
So-
is that
and
okay?
Ours has got, the high pressure
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, the right thing.
So you're
Yeah.
right, if he's going for gas, yes, okay, so and here's the thing, who's gonna remember the town, because nobody wrote that down, that he could go down there and.
Well,
well, that's more gets into the day-to-day direction. We should go. And we did talk to him, and I don't like to mention employees by name, but
Yeah.
it was a concern we explored with him. Got him some options, and if that's an option, the highway commissioner, him personally and his staff has been more than willing to
Yeah, I don't
collaborate
think we
with
should,
us on a
let's
variety.
not tap into petty cash, we have the resource, let's just use it.
Well,
Perfect.
if we have said, part of your vehicle use policy doesn't allow us to take those is you're not going on a
Oh,
trip, you
good
can't
point.
take it to a wash.
Good point.
You know, and that's
Okay.
really strict, the Metro guide says you can't do that.
Okay, good
Can't
point.
take it for maintenance, that's me.
I mean, I think that's one of those ones if it was
It's like a
obvious
oil
maintenance,
All
That's
right,
insane.
so you'll
Yeah.
be on top of that.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the proposed budget for
One of
next year?
that point is, in this, I didn't bring my copy, it didn't flip. The copy I looked at didn't flip.
I'll check again.
I'll be glad to share where, maybe you change some numbers from the one we get. I don't know.
Okay,
I'll be
appreciate
glad to share with you when I forgot to bring it over.
Are we using Excel when we're creating these spreadsheets? Because the formula should calculate it so we don't have to manually do it.
Short answer is no.
Oh, do you know how to do formulas?
Um, We were not physically together. I actually took the PDF, converted it to Word, made changes, suggested that it be made in the Excel doc, and we haven't coordinated to do that yet, so. It should be a Word, should be Excel. doc,
Yeah,
right?
but that's a lot of steps. Why aren't we just building it when we're?
And then,
Sorry,
in
Excel.
Excel, and then share it with each other.
Put it in a Google Drive, password protected.
You know, you're probably passing this today, but there's still work to be done on it.
Mhm.
It would be my hope that you can get this budget to balance. Just like I said last year, and if you notice, there was surprises last year and there's always changes, but if you could at least start with a balanced budget, we've got a running chance of making it, even at the end of the year. So, you're not that far off. It can happen if you really want it to happen. And if you need any input to try to help this, get balanced, I'd be more than happy to try to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back onto the agenda.
Which one?
Number 12 is the review of financial committee minutes from December 4th, 2024.
Maybe you're up.
It is in the,
Minute, no.
it is on the packet online. Oh, no, that's not it.
I might not have got a copy.
Here it is. Is this the one? No.
I don't have a copy in front of me.
I don't. Not here. All right.
It is online. It has been online. I didn't do it, but,
You just take that on to the next.
Suggest we table it. Someone want to make a motion to table? Sorry, did someone want to make a motion to table that to the next finance committee meeting?
I'll move to postpone review of the financial committee minutes until the next board meeting. Or finance. meeting.
Right.
Finance meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, Supervisor Hewitt,
Yes.
trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Trustee Page is a yes, trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Guys. Thank you.
Okay. Agenda when I was coming through there. Okay, elected official comment, anyone? Any trustees, supervisor?
Well, it's coming. Only comment I want to make is that, Township Administrator John did, answer some questions for a potential partner on conducting, doing education, conducting IT security, and also being a help desk resource. So we got those questions over to the firms so that they can get a quote. So
Good.
that's coming.
Good.
What's
Thank you.
nice about that is it's a 24-hour operation. So if someone has a problem, they're not reaching out to just and waiting, it's multiple people answering the calls. They work with small businesses. It's a local business too. So I think that there's value in making sure we're using the local business. The owner is a Lisle Township resident too, which I think there's some value in that, supporting people within our own community. So hopefully we'll get that number, in the next day and can, get that, but,
That's
as
great.
part of the budget, because, yeah, I think having an actual help desk for any user at any time that answers the phone when you call is, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a big delay and we get in the work that we have to wait for someone to circle back with you, but more importantly, that security audit, and not just security audits, but awareness and training and making sure, like, I just had to do it in my own company where I had to answer all these questions and get my little certificate of IT security user, good communicative user. There's just things people don't know, and I think they know, and it can be detrimental, to the whole system, and also because we have so much data integrity that we're responsible for,
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's huge. All right, any other comment?
That was old business.
That was like the
That's
official
elected.
comment. Elected official
Oh,
comment.
gotcha.
Executive session, anyone? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Go
Supervisor Hewitt. Yeah. Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Trustee Page is a yes. Trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Geist.
Okay, 6:20.
And we're
Yeah.
going to switch links for Beth and Kelly.